You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rokfin, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Now let's talk about some of the modalities that you utilize. You have been aware of some of these abilities for a very long time, since a very young age. And many people who are aware of these abilities, they hone in and focus on certain things, maybe clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience. But you have a multitude of different modalities that you have been aware of and utilizing for a while. Is that right?
Yeah. I've never limited myself, Chris. When I started out on this journey, it was like, some people were like, okay, I'm a medium, and other people were like, well, I'm a tarot card reader, and other people were like, well, I'm a dowser. And I was like, where's the dividing line that says that you can't do all of that? And so I never put any limits on myself. I said, okay, I'm going to study everything, and I'm going to see what I can apply to my life. I'm going to see what I can get good at. I'm going to see what I can utilize. And one of the side effects of doing that was it gave me a tremendous breadth of knowledge that enabled me to teach people and to help people to understand things, and to understand that they didn't have to limit themselves to just one particular tool or technique in the psychic realm, paranormal realm, that there's a lot of spiritual tools and techniques, and you can pick and choose from them. You can combine a lot of them. You can study as many of them as you want to. Logically, you're going to be better at some things than you are others, but there's no reason to limit yourself. And I never limited myself. People say, well, what are you? Are you this? Are you that? Or the other? I use psychic as the umbrella term, and within that, I'm a medium. I'm a tarot card reader. I've successfully scry, used crystal balls. I've used the Ouija board. I've used dowsing rods. I've used pendulums, spirit photography, everything. So that's given me a greater and a wider education, and a greater ability to serve my clients, to help my clients, and to help me to instruct others, to really speak to others' needs.
Now, interestingly enough, my show yesterday was with the former SRI remote viewer, Russell Targ, and we were discussing how to hone in on some of those abilities. Now, this is something that you have done as well, is that right?
Oh,
remote viewing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any, and we used to call it, clairsentience, clear knowing, or or clairvoyance, clear seeing. And that was the terminology back when, and then it became remote viewing. And, it's funny to me that we always change terminology. We always try and update it and make it flashier or, more appealing or whatever. But if you go way back in the annals of spiritualists, spirit mediums, and psychics, and look way back, they have all exercised all of these abilities that we're acting like are brand new, and they're not. It's like when channeling became the big buzzword. Channeling is just what spirit mediums have always done, which is communicating with the other side and channeling spirits, channeling information from the other side. So there's nothing really new there. And of course, remote viewing, like I say, that's clairvoyance, is remote viewing. Nothing really new there. But I get tickled that it seems like people have to put a catchier label on things, or something that sounds a little more scientific or respectable. And I think a lot of times, science in particular, researchers try and lift the paranormal out of the past associations and say, okay, this guy can sit in a darkened room with a candle and a crystal ball and get all this information from the ether, but let's do the same thing, but let's put it in the laboratory and let's call it by a different name so people don't think we're kooks. So I think a lot of times that's what happens, and it's basically the same thing. But I've got to go listen to that interview you did with Targ. I have a very good friend I met. He had heard me on one of my Coast to Coast AM appearances, and he emailed me, and we subsequently became friends. And he didn't work at Stanford Research Institute at SRI, but he was at Stanford when they developed SRI. And he knew like Targ and Putoff and Geller and all those people out there, and got to see some of the things that they were doing, and it was very interesting to talk to him.
Some of the stories that he gave about the abilities that some of the people like Uri Geller had displayed were absolutely incredible, and it's hard to believe that what the CIA and government learned isn't still being implemented in some programs in some way, but that's a completely different show. Now, I want to break down some of the modalities that you not only utilize, but you also teach about a little bit in this book.
Right.
First of all, you said channeling.
Yeah.
What is there a difference between channeling and a spirit walk-in, or letting some spirit take over a part of your consciousness, or is this one and the same?
It's basically kind of one and the same. It goes back to the days of like automatic writing, or even the use of the Ouija board, things like that. You're asking a higher power, or another spirit, another intelligence, another being, another entity to exercise control over a part of your body, or to utilize your body for communication. So it's basically the same kind of thing that's been around, forever and a day. It's like what the spiritualists used to do, the spirit mediums used to practice. And then, that along came automatic writing, the Ouija board, so on and so forth. But it's all basically the same idea. And that's that you're calling upon a different being outside of yourself. You're calling upon a higher power. You're calling upon some other entity to either process that information directly through you, and then you speak that information, or to utilize your hands, your arms to write something, or to move the planchet on the Ouija board. It's all been around the same way for a long time.
Do you have methods on how to identify the intent of the spirit you're communicating with? I've heard some say that there can be trickster-like spirits or entities that try to deceive us in a certain way to get a certain information through, or just because they think it's fun in a certain way. Is that the case? Right. And if so, how do you decipher through that?
Well, I think one thing that you can do when you're approaching the other side using any spiritual tool or technique is don't be frivolous. Take seriously what you're doing. Don't be disrespectful, because these energies on the other side are extremely powerful, way more knowledgeable than we are in a lot of cases, and can exercise a lot more energy than we can. So respect goes a long, long way when you approach the other side and when you're trying to obtain some information. Again, don't be frivolous. Don't be silly. Don't be goofy. People sit down and they go, well, I'm going to use a Ouija board, and then they start laughing and giggling. They're like, oh God, my uncle did this, and something haunted his house and did all that. And you get goofy, you get silly, you drag out all these myths and things, and then that taints the session, and it taints the energies that come through, and taints what you're doing. And so the key to all of it is respect. The key to it is a serious attitude and experience. You have to work at something long enough. Like, my entire life, my whole life, I have studied, I have read, I have practiced, I have experienced, and I still continue to do so, even though I've read professionally for over 50 years. And it's something that you don't just sit down and immediately do. A lot of people do get quick results and good results pretty quickly, but it's something that if you're going to get serious about it, and if you're really trying to connect with beings on the other side that have a higher intelligence, can see a little further down the road than we can maybe help you out with some information that you need or whatever, then it takes dedication, and it takes practice, and it takes working at it. And you have, there are things that happen to people just kind of out of the blue. One example I can give you from the book, the latest book, talking about dreams. There was a friend of mine that at one point in his life worked for the NSA, the National Security Agency, and he was a code breaker for the NSA.